At long last, RWBY Volume 6, Chapter 1, or Episode 1, is finally here. It's been a long wait. It's been a long while since we had new content for RWBY, and, I've missed this series. Even though last season had its own issues, which I talked about in my Season 5 reviews, I still really enjoy RWBY. I'm a big fan of Rooster Teeth, and I'm glad to finally have the series back to be able to talk about it, and just to see where Rooster Teeth will take the story with RWBY, Blake, Yang, Weiss, Crow. I'm very curious to see where it's going to go. But anyways, if you're not a first member of Rooster Teeth and you're clicking on this video, like for instance, if you have not watched the episode, I don't recommend you to continue on, because this video, obviously, it will contain spoilers. And I know some are probably going to ask, where did you see this episode at? Once again, I'm a Rooster Teeth first member, so if you, have a membership with them, obviously you're going to be able to watch any series that they release very early. And that's the reason I was able to watch it. I actually wanted to watch this yesterday, but thanks to, little Casca down here being a little bit of a brat lover, but being a little bit of a brat, I didn't really get the chance to actually watch anything, which was fine. I wanted to spend time with her to see how she was going to do. But anyways, I finally got a little bit of time, because she's just sitting here chilling, biting on some toys. I finally got some time to watch the newest episode of RWBY, and I dare say, it's definitely a step in the right direction compared to the last season. So let's give some context to that. So, as you know, the last season of RWBY, there was a very big divide in the RWBY community. There was a lot of people that did enjoy it, and there was a lot that obviously had problems with it. There was some obvious things that were a problem, like, or the final episodes, it was kind of meh. Like, there was some villains that were kind of built up, and then didn't turn out to be that crazy, or, the whole Silver Eyes thing, it just didn't feel really special towards the end, or, Blake's entire plot point, or, storyline was dragged out a little bit too long. There was some things about the last season, obviously, people had problems with, myself included, but, I'm going into Volume 6 with a fresh mind, just a whole new outlook and all that, wanting to see this new season and hope that everything that I had a problem with in the last season is corrected, and this turns out to be a fantastic, season for RWBY. So, anyways, first episode, my first impressions, overall, very positive. There was a lot of action going on, but there was some hidden messages or themes with the characters, like, conversations and stuff that really mattered and kind of expanded upon some of these interactions that were starting in, Volume 5, Volume 4, and even Volume 3. So let's get into that. So basically, there was a brief little exchange between Yang and Blake in this episode, and it doesn't look like that crazy, but there is a lot of meaning there, because when Blake is just sitting there by herself, after already basically realizing that, Sun is no longer going to be around her, and, she's basically lost him, and then now she's going back to her team that she's been gone from for a very long time, basically kind of like ran away, and then now she's having to face a person that lost her arm for her sake, obviously it's going to be very tough. And when she's just sitting there basically by herself, and you see Yang get down, about to, grab, a place where she can play a game, like, the scroll or whatever she said, basically, Blake jumps up real quick. He's like, hey, let me get that for you. And it's very obvious what Blake was doing was basically trying to be considerate for Yang. She was overthinking, and she was like, oh, crap, she only has one arm. I don't want her picking up something heavy that's above her with just one arm. And in a lot of ways, it was nice on Blake's part to do something like that. It shows that she is still caring, she cares about Yang, and she's still reflecting on the fact of what has happened to her. But we also know that Yang as a character, she has changed as well. Thanks to the last season, if there's one good thing about it, Yang went through a lot of growth to be able to realize that, yes, she's lost an arm, but she needs to move forward. She can't let that keep her down. She's got to keep moving forward, and she's, got a new synthetic hand, which has definitely improved her ability to be able to be a huntress, and you could see that she's, going with a good stride. She doesn't want to give up. But obviously, Blake hasn't really got to see this, and she still blames herself, and this fits in with Blake's character quite a bit. And another big thing about this scene is that it shows that there's definitely going to be a complication between Blake and Yang, because they really haven't had a serious conversation with each other yet, like a straight up, like, serious talking about everything, getting everything off their chest that happened, you know, with Yang losing her arm, you know, and Adam and all that. It's just been a long time since, you know, they really had an official talk. So I feel like that's going to be one of the key points between Blake and Yang this season of RWBY, is just them having a conversation and trying to move past Volume 3 and Volume 4 and trying to, you know, once again be that team they once were, Team RWBY. There is a brief little scene with RWBY and Ozpin, which is very subtle, and it goes along with kind of like a big theme that was happening in the last volume of RWBY. Remember, Ozpin, or Oz, he was someone that you couldn't really trust. It was a big thing going on. Can you really trust a man that's lied so much, not telling the whole truth and all that? And, you know, I understand why people would think that way. I mean, he honestly has held back a lot of information. And there's a brief scene to where obviously he held back some information about the relic and all that, and it attracts Grimm. He didn't say anything, but, you know, as everybody's kind of getting a little bit heated that he didn't say anything, RWBY intervenes and stops everybody from questioning him and getting in an argument with Ozpin and just trying to settle the situation. And I feel like some watching that scene might get, you know, not a really good, like the main meaning there, what it actually meant for RWBY to do something like that. It's not the fact that she's trusting, you know, Ozpin blindly. That's not really the point. You see, oh, you okay? Oh, you fell off? Oh, you fell off your little bed. I'm sorry. You scared? You okay? You good? Okay. She wasn't just blindly trying to believe in Ozpin. She wasn't trying to basically say, hey, you know, regardless, you know, you need to trust this man. She wasn't doing that. What she was trying to say was that basically we don't have time for this, because there was a brief glimpse to where, you know, the civilians are being looked at, you hear the baby crying, and basically RWBY wants to calm them down, because that's the big point, is that right now they were in a very difficult situation. A lot of Grimm were attacking, and, you know, just so much was going on that obviously they don't want to frighten the passengers. Their job, regardless of just, you know, taking down Grimm and protecting the world, is also to reassure the public that everything is okay. And I mean, with how the world has been in recent times in RWBY, it's really not that safe. It's been very obvious. So much has happened. I mean, think about Lionheart and all that. Even though there was a big cover-up story at the beginning of the episode, I mean, there's just a lot that's been happening in different regions around the world. So, I mean, yeah, it makes sense why RWBY would intervene. It's like, look, we don't have time for this. We don't have time for us to bicker and argue with Ozpin, trying to lie and deceive us. You know, there has to be a reason why he didn't want to say it. It's very complicated. Who really knows? But the big point is RWBY's like, let's just get past this. Let's continue on. And RWBY showed a really good quality there. She actually took a team leader role in that moment. And I'm not saying RWBY hasn't done this, but she was very stern and she got everybody on task to do what they needed to do in that moment. It wasn't time to bicker and have a petty fight. They needed to deal with the Grimm. And so with the way that was done, I'm proud of RWBY. I don't think this completely makes up for the lack of characterization or development she has gotten, but it definitely is a start, and I do hope that Rooster Teeth continues to focus on RWBY a little bit and allows us to see her develop. But anyways, let's also talk about other little interactions between the characters. There was a lot of scenes throughout this episode that reminded me a lot of a typical anime. Now, it's been very obvious that Rooster Teeth has been inspired by Japanese animation anime. It's always been very clear since day one when the series first came out. I mean, to the, you know, just the way the characters are designed and everything, the abilities, it's very anime-like. And it just seems like the more and more that RWBY continues to come out, like more volumes, it seems more and more it's becoming more like an actual anime. There was many times while I was watching this episode, and I honestly mistook it for like an anime episode. I was like, whoa, this looks really good. And in a lot of ways, even though it's pretty much full CGI, Rooster Teeth has definitely almost perfected their style with the CGI for RWBY. They've gotten so much better over these years of starting from Volume 1 to where they're at now. I mean, you go back to Volume 1 and you look at how that CGI was compared to the CGI in this, and you're like, oh my god, is this really even the same company working on this? And it just, like, it makes me appreciate the time and effort that Rooster Teeth has definitely put into this series. It definitely doesn't go unnoticed. I mean, to the lip syncing, to the voice acting, to just the CGI, not just in the fights, but just in the casual slice of life setting that we saw throughout this episode. I think they've improved a lot. And I think this first episode, if this is insight to what we can expect from Volume 6, this, like I said, is a step in the right direction, and I want to see more of it. Hopefully, we continue to have this quality. Hopefully, we get to see just, fun episodes with character development and, action scenes, obviously, but action scenes that matter, have a lot of weight, and something that really just brings us emotion, similar to how Volume 3 was. Honestly, the action within this episode is very comparable to Volume 3's action, how chaotic it was, just so much chaos going on that you just like, whoa, it's just so much. And it reminded me a lot of the end of Volume 3, which, once again, very happy to say. But I think I want to end this video here. That's my overall impressions of the first episode of Volume 6. It's a great episode. If you've yet to see it, go watch it if you're a first member. If you're not a first member, obviously, you're going to have to wait for the free version to come out from Rooster Teeth. And if you do somehow still want to watch it and you're just a free member, you always can get a membership with them. Now, I'm not sponsored, by the way. Rooster Teeth, sponsor me. I gladly, love to be sponsored. But jokes aside, though, basically, I'm just saying if you want to watch early, you can't wait, you can always get a first membership. But I love you guys. Have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.